Starting off this countdown, we have the husband in danger. Now, this one breaks my heart. It's a sign to always trust your gut instincts. So several years ago, this woman had a dream in which her husband was in danger. When she woke up, she knew something was wrong and that something was going to happen to him. So she begged him not to go to work in the morning. But her husband wasn't one to call in sick, so he went to work. An hour later, he was killed in an accident, which could have been prevented if he listened to his wife.
Coming in at number 9 are the cats. I will shamelessly try and include cats in every video if I can. I don't even care. I don't even care if it's relevant. Anyway, this story comes from Redditor Gave a Sky, who said they recently had a dream they were in an apartment with a few cats. That's just my dream. I mean, that's my life actually. Anyway, everything seemed pretty normal and very real until one of the cats literally up and jumped out of the balcony. The person was a bit wary, so they sat in the kitchen just to collect their thoughts. Then one of the cats just sits next to them on a different chair, except the user just can't look at the cat. It felt like looking at the sun. The cat wasn't even bright, but they just couldn't look at it. Out of the periphery of their vision, they realized the cat was morphing into something else entirely. This menacing creature with a disturbing face. It morphed into some humanoid creature, and the user couldn't see its body, but its face was pale and square and had no features whatsoever except 2 eyes. The user immediately feels like the whole world is just closing in on them, and they wake up, but the creature is still there, getting closer. Realizing they're not actually awake yet, they somehow willed their unconscious body to fall off the bed in order to actually wake up. They ended up blacking out after they fell off the bed and refused to sleep alone for 4 days. Honestly, this is very impressive that they willed themselves to wake up when they were asleep. I feel like I wouldn't even know how to do that. At number 8, we have the woman. Honestly, I feel like everyone can somehow relate to this story, and I'll tell you why after. So this person shared one of the most terrifying dreams and said they actually suffer from really bad sleep paralysis. They have a rocking chair in their bedroom, and I don't know why they do. That's literally the first thing to get haunted, if anything. Like, why? Either way, one night they were laying on their bed unable to move, and they looked at the chair. There was a pale grey woman on the chair with blonde hair who was crying her eyes out while staring at the storyteller. And while she was crying her eyes out, she was also pulling out her insides. The person closed their eyes and they were trying everything to not see this right now, and then they felt this heavy pressure on their chest. They opened their eyes and saw this woman sitting on their chest pulling out her inner organs. The storyteller was so terrified they peed themselves, and mind you, they were 20 years old at the time. I can't even imagine the horror this person must have been going through, and I always think, honestly, why I said it was relatable is because I always think my chair with a bunch of laundry on top is a person in the dark, and I know a lot of other people get scared of that as well, so I was like, oh my god, hashtag relatable. But with the organ pulling woman, I'm just like, I hope that's not relatable. Please. Filling our number 7 slot is Gracie's mum, not to be confused with Stacy's mum. Reddit user Rakis11 shared the story of how when she was 5 years old she had her first ever nightmare, but things didn't really end even after she woke up. In her dream, she was at her friend Gracie's house and they were drawing on her deck with chalk, and mind you, she lived on a cliff near the seaside. Views for days. Either way, Gracie's mum came out and yelled at the girls for drawing on the deck, and then her mum started turning into something evil. She was getting uglier and uglier, and her skin had just changed shades like 4 times. The user could see this happening, but Gracie had no idea what was going on. Either way, the mum realizes the user knows she's evil and throws them both off the cliff, and that's when she woke up. Now a few weeks pass after this dream, and then one day Gracie isn't at school. Apparently Gracie had drowned in the pool at her house, and her parents had filled the pool in, got divorced, and moved straight away, which is sus as hell. Either way, 8 years later, the user's brother, who wasn't even born at the time of the incident, was just walking on a trail near Gracie's old house, and he goes, "Gracie says hello." The user was like, "What are you talking about, Cam?" And all he said was, "The wet girl." The user never told her brother about Gracie. He had no idea it even happened. But I feel like her dream about the evil mum had something to do with what really happened. Like, it's just too suspicious for like a couple's kid to die and then quickly just like fill up the pool and just move away. Like, it's something just not sitting right with me. Now at number 6 is The Mask. This one was shared by an anonymous person who said one night he was watching TV in bed when out of nowhere his TV just just went black. Despite turning it on from the remote a bunch of times, it just wasn't working, which was weird since this had never happened before. Either way, while trying to get it to work, he ended up falling asleep. He started feeling this huge pressure on his chest and his face was getting pushed to look at the wall. Now something or someone was grabbing his face and turning it to face the ceiling now with such force he thought his jawbone was about to break. When he opened his eyes in this state, he saw this massive black figure on top of him with a mask as a face that was fixed in the creepiest smile. But it wasn't even a proper mask, the thing had just drawn it on itself. It puts its finger on the guy's lips and just says shh. He then literally fainted from fear, and when he woke up he made a beeline for his mum's room. And honestly, as any honest adult, I would do the same. No shame. Go to mommy's room straight away. She can protect you from all. Now coming in at number 5 is the darkness. Now this one's from Redditor the Pixel Mouse, who has this recurring dream about a creature she dubbed the darkness. The monster appears in 2 forms. The first is in human form at a crowded place like a mall for example, and she won't even realize it's there until it starts appearing everywhere around her, and then everyone else just disappears. At this point the darkness starts running at her in super speed, and as soon as it grabs her, she wakes up. In the second rarer form, she'll randomly be in a room in her house, and as she goes into another room it'll go dark straight away and she'll know she's about to get royally screwed over. Like, at least she's self-aware, she knows it's happening, she knows it's coming. Even if she tries to escape this dark room, she gets pulled back in, so she just literally closes her eyes, waits for the darkness to grab her, and then she wakes up. The only thing she knows about its form is that it has long sharp fingers, because that's all she's ever really touched. Man's eyes are closed for the rest of the time, so the monster could literally take any true form. None of us will ever know. At number 4 is the little girl. This one's from Reddit user Pretends He Knows Stuff, who said one summer a few years ago he had a super high fever and sleep paralysis, which is probably the shittiest combo ever. Throw diarrhea into the mix and then it'd really be the shittiest combo. Pun intended. Anyway, that night he had a dream that everyone he knew was crying over this little girl, and when he got close to her he realized why. The girl was missing half of her face, and the guy said what a shame to her, and all of a sudden the room went grey. I love how this girl's face is half missing and all he said was what a shame. Like, you can come up with something better than that. Anyway, in this grey room he wakes up and sees the girl inches from his face, and all she keeps saying is you did this to me. Except after saying it a bunch of times, she's not a little girl anymore, now she's like an elderly woman, and then that woman goes and jumps on his chest. Like grandma's into acrobatics lately. The guy thought his lungs were burning up, and he claims that he actually prays every day still that that dream never happens to him again. May God be with you. Filling our number 3 slot is the spider. This one was shared by an anonymous user who said they dreamt they were walking through a wasteland, probably from Fallout. The game Fallout, if you guys know it, you probably do. Either way, they were with a group of people they didn't know, and everything was a weird shade of either green or black. Like no other color even existed in this dream. Either way, they entered into a ruined building and they found someone crouched down on the ground with their back to them. For some weird dream logic reason, the person just knew they knew the person who was crouching down. They were so relieved, and as they went to touch the crouched person on the shoulder, everything became slow motion, like they were underwater almost. As they touched the person's shoulder, everything became normal speed again, and they turned around to look at each other. Except this thing, this person, they didn't know them. The person had one eye, and instead of having an iris or pupils or even whites, it was just a freaking spider as an eye. A black spider, and the bits that should have been white were green. The person literally jumped awake, and only when they were awake did they realize that thing was their sister. 20 years on, they remember the dream in such vivid detail, which goes to show how much it really scarred them. I hate insects, so if I saw a cyclops person with a spider for an eye, I would off myself. There's no hope for me now. Done with it? I don't want to be on this planet anymore. Now at number 2 is the 2-part Banshee. So this also came from an anonymous person, and they recall 2 slightly linked dreams that they had when they were 7 years old and one right now. In the first dream, they were laying in bed trying to sleep. Bored, they were like, let me just look at the shadows on my wall till I fall asleep. But the more they noticed the shadows, the faster the shadows started moving until they fully came off the walls. They started tugging at the person's feet, and all of a sudden 3 toddlers climbed onto the bed, and if that wasn't creepy enough, they all had glowing yellow eyes. Like great, honestly, what else can go wrong? Love it. Simultaneously, the 3 babies let out the most high-pitched scream the person had ever heard before pulling them off the bed. And that was the first dream, which all in all was horrific but doable. Years and years later, the person had another dream. They were walking to the bathroom to get something from their cabinet, and as soon as they closed it, they hear the same high-pitched scream that the toddlers had let out all those years ago. When the person looked into the mirror on the cabinet, they saw that the bathtub behind them was full of blood, and a little girl was standing in the middle of it holding a freaking knife. Now the person who was looking at this started fainting in slow motion, and as they were falling, everything just started glitching and distorting, and the girl in the tub was just smiling and smiling as she moved towards the person. I just have to take a few deep breaths to digest this story. Even though I've already read it since I've written about it, I still need to digest it again because that was too much. And finally, at number 1 is the basement. According to Flugu, which is this girl's username, when she was 8 years old, she used to have this recurring dream that wouldn't stop for months. She even forced herself to stay awake for 3 whole days just so she wouldn't have to see this dream again. And honestly, if that doesn't set this story up well, nothing will. Now in her dream, she's in her basement with her sisters getting something to drink when all of a sudden her sisters' faces just start getting really weird. Their noses and mouths start shrinking and their eyes take up 90% of their face. The girl starts screaming and running up the stairs, but the sister creatures grab her neck and pull her down the stairs. By the time she's fallen down all these stairs and reached the bottom, one of the sister creatures pulls her up from the neck. When the girl looks at the creature, her face becomes oddly normal and human, except it's not human. She seems to have like another layer of skin on top of her face, and before the Flugu can even figure out what the hell is going on, the creature starts screaming like a demon, and all she can do is scream out of fear in response. The dream was so bad that the first time she had it, her mum told her she screamed for 3 hours straight before waking up. And that last bit really got to me because like how terrified you have to be to like literally be screaming 3 hours when you're unconscious. It's getting me in the feels, it's making me feel a type of way.
Starting off this countdown, we have the Demon Leader. This Reddit user claims that he was visited by a strange and powerful demon woman in his dreams. He claims that the dream started off with him being in a room full of praying women. That's when a strange woman in a dark cloak appeared. He knew that the woman was not human. He could sense her evil presence. He then called her out in front of everyone saying she's a demon. I mean, I don't think that's the smartest thing to do, but The woman then approached him and took off her cloak, revealing that she was an old, wrinkly woman with dark, evil eyes. From there, she looked him dead in the eyes and said, "I can't wait to see you hanging from your neck." He claims that when he woke up, he had pain all around his neck. He also claims that every so often he will experience waves of darkness where he envisions hanging himself. He thinks that this demon is latched onto him and is trying to control him. That's terrifying. In our 9th spot today, we have the black dog. Several years ago, when this next individual was 12, they woke up from a weird dream-like vision. In the dream, they saw a black dog collapsing in the distance. Now, they didn't think much of it. I mean, it's just a dream, right? So they went to school. That evening, he came home to his mom being very upset. Turns out that their granddad's dog Daisy had passed away. Daisy was a black dog and had collapsed while out for a walk. AKA, the dog he saw dying in his dream was Daisy. Coming in at number 8, we have Rose. This next individual had a very strange dream about a woman she used to work with called Rose. Now, they weren't close at all, they were just work acquaintances, and they only casually talked. And she hardly knew anything about her personal life, so it was quite weird for her to be suddenly dreaming about her. In the dream, she was talking to Rose, and Rose was crying her eyes out. She was saying that all she wanted in life was children, and how she couldn't have them. Now, this woman woke up being like, "Ha, that's a weird dream," and thought nothing of it. The next morning, she saw Rose crying at lunch. Turns out she had just discovered that she wasn't ever going to be able to have kids. Like, how on earth did this woman predict that that was going to happen to her? It totally blows my mind. In our 7th spot today, we have the cancer. Turns out that a number of breast cancer patients have had dreams about developing cancer before actually being diagnosed with it. In a study from 2015, 18 women with breast cancer were interviewed, and more than half of them had warning dreams. And many of these women had had no family or personal history of the disease. In 94% of the cases, these dreams were a warning sign to these women that they had cancer. Let's take Susan DeGregorio for example. In 2013, she started having dreams where someone would be like, "It's your time to get cancer." After these became recurring, she fought to get an extensive test done on her breasts. In between appointments, she had a dream of a woman with short curly hair in a lab coat telling her that she had stage 3 breast cancer. Soon, that dream came true. When she got her diagnosis, it was given to her by a woman in a white lab coat with short curly hair. Her dreams were right. She did have breast cancer. In our 6th spot today, we have the landslide. In 1966, a terrible landslide from a coal mine slid into the village of Aberfan, UK. Sadly, a school was destroyed by the landslide and 144 students and teachers inside lost their lives. Days before the incident, a young girl named Errol Mae Jones had a nightmare about this occurring. She said that in the dream, a black substance wiped out her school and killed her. A couple days later, she told her mom that she was not afraid to die because she was going to be with her school friends Peter and June. A couple days later, the landslide occurred. Errol sadly lost her life alongside Peter and June. Sadly, this girl predicted her end. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Robert Kennedy's assassination. In March of 1968, a woman named Kathleen Middleton had a dream that Kennedy was going to be assassinated. For months, she had reoccurring dreams of this happening. On June 4th, 1968, she called the Premonitions Bureau a number of times. She kept reporting her concerns about Kennedy. She knew that he was going to die soon. But obviously, they did nothing about it. A day later, he was shot and killed. Had they listened to her, maybe his fate would have been different. In our 4th spot today, we had the earthquake. According to Reddit user Kosher the Writer, they always get dreams about earthquakes before they even happen. They live in California, so they tend to have a lot of earthquakes. And every time they dream about one occurring, a few minutes later, they will actually occur. They think that they are sensitive to the energies around them, and maybe that's how they can detect upcoming earthquakes. Or they're psychic, who knows, but it's pretty weird. Someone should hire him as the weatherman or something. In our 3rd spot today, we have the tornado. When this individual was only 13, him and his neighbor both had dreams of a tornado whipping through their town. As a result, the neighbor actually cut down the trees behind his house, because in his dream, the trees had fallen onto his house and destroyed it. The other guy had a dream that he was looking down on his town from space and he saw this massive tornado ripping through it. Not too long later, their dreams came true. He was outside when the wind began to turn. They rushed inside their home and a huge tornado came ripping through their town. Their street was badly destroyed as a result. This was said to be the 2nd deadliest tornado outbreak in US history. This is another guy that should work for the news station. In our 2nd spot today, we have the flight home. Due to this dad's intuition, he literally saved his life and his family's. So while on vacation, the night before his family's flight home, he had a dream that he was in a horrific plane crash. In the dream, the crash had something to do with the nose of the plane. The next morning, he convinced his wife to postpone the flight to a later time. Now, she was angry that they did this for a dream, but it's a good thing that they did. That morning, the plane that they were supposed to be on got in a terrible crash. Something was wrong with the nose of the plane and it caused them to crash upon takeoff. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Space Shuttle Columbia disaster. On February 1st of 2003, upon re-entering Earth's atmosphere, the Space Shuttle Columbia started to disintegrate. Sadly, all 7 crew members on board lost their lives. That day, Reddit user OESJMR was taking a nap when he had a dream he was standing in a field looking up at the sky. That's when he saw a fireball fall from the sky and pieces were breaking off. That's when he heard a man's voice say, "Do not touch any pieces of the spacecraft that may crash to Earth due to potential radiation contamination." That's when he woke up. The next morning he turned on the radio and heard the same man's voice from his dream. Instantly, he was scared. So he turned on the TV to find out what the man was talking about. And that's when he saw that the Space Shuttle Columbia had disintegrated during re-entry, just like what he saw in his dream.
Starting us off with number 10 is Thanksgiving turkey. User Mash Skulls shared that about a month ago they had sleep paralysis. One morning they started hearing this distorted, deep, unfamiliar voice. They started hearing more than one voice and tried to move or wake up, but they couldn't. And this is where it gets really freaking screwed up. The user saw a bunch of faceless men with razor-sharp teeth coming towards them, grinding their teeth as they went. They were whispering food, food, food over and over again, and were legit holding knives and forks. Now imagine being unable to control or move your body as these cannibal creatures just coming towards you. Now they surrounded the user, climbed on top of them, and then carved them like a turkey. It gets graphic. They tore the user limb from limb. They went headfirst into the rest of their body like a bunch of starving hyenas. The user watched them take her own finger bones and use them as toothpicks. Can you even, I don't even want to imagine this. The user literally had to listen to Beethoven for 3 hours after the dream just to get the image of being eaten alive out of their head. And honestly, I don't even know what I would do in that position. Probably not Beethoven, maybe Mozart.
And in our 9th spot we have Succubus. So this individual believes that they were haunted by the succubus demon in their dreams. Basically, succubus dates back to medieval times. It's a demon that can transform themselves into attractive female to attract men. Then it's said that they can eat a man's soul, or if the men are repeatedly visited by her in their dreams, then she can even cause death. So the Reddit user Yamhead14 posted this dream. He said that it was a very vivid dream that took place in a scary abandoned warehouse. That's when this demon woman arrived and tried to seduce him. He said that she looked attractive, but he knew something was off with her. She tried to force herself on him, but he ended up fighting her off and escaped. When he woke up, he researched about his dream and found images of the demon that looked just like the lady from his dream. Before then, he had never even seen or heard of this demon. What's freaky is how another Reddit user commented on the post saying that he too had an identical dream that also took place in a warehouse with the same demon. Could it be that she is a real demon trying to find her next victim? In our 8th spot, we have the Dark Demon. This next woman claims that she has had super lifelike encounters with demons in her sleep. One night she was sleeping on her couch when she woke up to a small shadow hovering over her. Suddenly her eyes were forced shut and she couldn't open them. Then she felt this demon pacing back and forth beside her. She claims that it was heavy since every step that it took, it shook the couch. She also said that she could feel his anger radiating off of him. After some time, he finally spoke and said, "Why can't you just follow me?" She said that she swears that this was a real encounter and not just a dream. She truly felt this demon's presence. Making our way down to list number 7, we have the demonic ritual. This next woman had a dream where she was participating in a satanic ritual in an old house. She said that all the other people also involved in this ritual had blurry faces. They were all in a circle and were chanting in unison and also contorting their bodies. When the ritual was over, her vision went entirely gray. But she saw figures in white robes entering through the windows and doors. But they weren't human. Their eyes were entirely black. Each figure chose one of the participants and entered their body. The woman tried to fight back from this demon entering her body, but failed. Next thing she remembers is being in a trance and being controlled by this demon. She also claims that when she woke up, her whole body hurt. So could it be that in her dream she helped summon and release demons? Let's hope not. In our 6th spot, we have Babadook. This next individual claims that he is constantly haunted by a demon that eerily resembles Babadook. Babadook is a tall, pale-faced creature that torments its victims once they become aware of his reality. In his dreams, this Babadook-looking demon would float over his bed, slowly coming closer and closer to him. He would lock eyes with him, and this demon would always have this wide, evil grin plastered on his face. The individual remains helpless and frozen while the demon comes closer and closer. He is always overcome with negative feelings when this happens. He even claims that he can feel the demon's breath on his face. Then when the demon is inches away from his face, he disappears and he wakes up. This is a reoccurring dream for him. This demon just continues to haunt him. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the demon child. This next woman says that she is always tormented by a demon of a young girl with dark black eyes. She says that her dreams will start off pleasant until the girl enters and forcibly drags her into a nightmare. She says that once this demon girl enters her dreams, then dark things start to happen, such as Dead people will look in through her windows, or she'll end up watching her loved ones die, or she'll even see herself die. She says that while these nightmares unfold, the demon just stands there and watches it all. This woman is convinced that this little girl demon is responsible for all her bad dreams, since she's just always there when they happen. In our fourth spot, we have the dark figure. This man remembers having a dream where he woke up feeling lifeless, as if he just died. In his dream, he got out of bed and peered out from his bedroom to the hallway. That's when he saw a tall man standing there, staring at him. He said that this man was about 7 feet tall. He was wearing all black clothes, which consisted of big heavy boots, jeans, and a puffy jacket. The scariest part is that he had no face at all. He said that a dim blue light was illuminating the man's face, but he just had no facial features. His face was purely black. That's when he knew that this wasn't a human and it was indeed a demon. From there, he was frozen in place, stuck staring at this demon. He felt as if this demon was sucking away his soul. He claims that he practically saw it leaving his body. When there was nothing else left, he passed out. When he woke up from the dream, he felt very lightheaded and weak. My question is, who is this demon and why is he so fashionably dressed? In our third spot, we have Lamia. This next individual claims that she was visited by the demon Lamia. In Greek mythology, Lamia was the queen of Libya who is known for murdering children. She's said to be an extremely violent and powerful demon. In her dream, she was walking down a black hallway. Everything was dark, but she could see a glow at the end of this long hallway. She had to feel her way along the sides of the walls to safely make it to the light, which was just one flickering candle. However, when she goes to pick up the candle, it's blown out. All of a sudden, her ears start to ring and burn. The walls shake and the candle she's holding relits to reveal Lamia standing inches from her face, screaming at her. She looks down and she's standing on a pile of dead bodies. She tries to run, but the bodies grab at her and scratch her arms and legs. When she woke up from her dream, her ears were still ringing. She also noticed that she was covered in a couple of bruises on her arms and legs that looked like marks from people grabbing her. Coming in our second spot, we have the shadow demon. This next story comes from a man named Andrew from Ohio. He claims that for 2 weeks in a row, he started experiencing really vivid and dark dreams. In particular, he constantly dreamt about a shadow demon. He says that this demon was about 6 to 7 feet tall. His face was completely pale. He had no facial features. Wondering. He said that the demon was wearing a long black trench coat with a black hat. His legs were super long. In his dream, the demon stands and just stares at Andrew. It then causes Andrew to burst into tears. He also says that this demon can climb up on the walls. What's scary is that apparently his dream came to life. One day he was in the kitchen talking to his mom when he saw the demon from his dream standing in front of the fridge. He immediately started panicking when he saw him, but when his mom turned to see what he was freaking out about, the shadow demon disappeared. So that's terrifying. His demon from his nightmares literally crossed over to the real world. And in our number one spot, we have the decaying body. This next individual probably had the worst dream and the scariest encounter with a demon, in my opinion. Because she was greeted by Bloody Mary. It just creeps me out saying her name. So basically, this woman fell asleep facing sideways, and she has a mirror facing her bed, so when she's laying on her side, she's just directly facing this mirror. That's when she woke up and she couldn't move her body at all. She felt like she was being forced to stare directly into this mirror. At first, she could just see herself, but slowly her appearance started to change. She started to look disfigured and as if her body was decaying right in front of her. Then all of a sudden, Bloody Mary appears as a glowing figure in the mirror. She stands there staring right into her eyes. That's when the woman's eyes and nose started to bleed. Bloody Mary screams, the mirror cracks, and the woman wakes up from her dream. Scariest thing of all, she claims that that same night, her and her friends were drinking and fooling around and ended up playing the Bloody Mary game. There you go. Reason 110 why you should not play this game. Also, why is it considered a game? It's just absolutely terrifying. It's not fun at all.